Just check to where you're at. So this first one I changed so that it's elimination because I just think it's easier to do it that way. You're not going to have graphing on the quiz. So what's one way I can cancel variables out? Because there's more than one. I can do, well, I still need the numbers to be the same, right? So if I want to get rid of the x's, I can multiply the bottom by a -4. If I want to do the y's, I can multiply the bottom by a +9. So whichever one how many of you did the x's, canceled out the x's? Okay, and how many of you canceled out the y's? All right, so I'll do the x's. So we're going to do a -4 times this. So -4x squared minus 4y squared equals -160. Add that to the top. These are going to cancel. I get -13y squared equals -52. Divide both sides by -13. Y equals, y squared, sorry, equals 4. And then square root that, and I get y equals plus and minus 2. So I have two y's I have to plug in. I have a +2 and a -2. You can plug them back into either one. So because these are smaller numbers, I would choose the second one. First, I'm going to plug in a +2. X squared would equal 36, and x is going to equal plus or minus the square root of 36, which is plus and minus 6. So if y is 2, I get two x's. One is 6 and one is -6. And then if I plug in -2, x squared plus -2 squared equals 40. The exact same thing happens because a -2 squared is the same thing as a +2 squared. Plus and minus +6. So now I've got 6 -2 and -6 -2. Yep. So you don't know, like I know that there's 2 based on my first variable, but I don't know that there's going to be a second one until I go to solve for the second variable. Sometimes there will be 4, sometimes there won't. I mean, it depends on the shape. If you could graph that accurately, it would be easier, but it's not as easy to graph those, right? Because that's like a hyperbola and a circle. So you've just got to plug them in. When you plug them in and you end up with an x squared equals something, that means that you have 2 x's for each one of those y's, which means you're going to double your points. Okay? All right, so this one says substitution. And we talked about this when we went over 12-7. Sometimes it's easier to solve for one over the other, okay? So maybe if I look at the second one, if I solve that second one for x squared, then I can plug right into my x squared. If I solve for y squared on the top, I can plug it back into the bottom as y squared. So either way you do it, okay, they're both about the same level of difficulty here. I would not recommend like subtracting the y squared from the top and then dividing by 2. You don't want to deal with fractions if you don't have to. So let's say I take this equation and solve it for x squared. So I'd get x squared equals 13 plus 3y squared. Now this is going to go in the place of the x squared here. So I'd get 2 times 13 plus 3y squared plus y squared equals 54. Distribute the 2. I hear you. And then combine your like terms. Subtract that 26. Divide by 7. And square root. Plus or minus the square root of 4, which is plus and minus 2. I already know I have at least 2 y's. This would be 2. This would be -2. And then I've got to plug them both back in. And I can plug them back into any of the original ones. So if I were to plug it back in here, let's say just because it's smaller numbers, x squared minus 3 times 2 squared equals 13. X squared minus 3 times 4. X squared minus 12. add the 12. And as soon as I get here, so Ruben, kind of answering your question before, as soon as I get to this point, as I see that there's a plus and minus, that means for each y, I have 2 x's. And because there's 2 y's, that means I'm going to have a total of 4 points. So when y is 2, my answer was positive 5 and negative 5. So there's 2 answers there. And then when I go plug in negative 2, whether I square a positive 2 or a negative 2, I get the same thing. So the same exact answer is going to pop up again. Plus and minus the square root of 25, which is plus and minus 5. So for each y being negative 2, I have 2 different x's. And then all 4 of those would be my answer. Okay, last one, and this time it says elimination, so we're going to do it just like we did the first time. Okay, if I add these as they are, does something cancel? Yeah, so this time we get lucky. So if I just add them, whoops, a daisy. 13x squared, these cancel. 117. X squared equals, that's 9. Square root both sides. Making sure I do plus and minus. And I've got 2 x's. Where x is 3 and where x is negative 3. And then I'm going to take those and plug them back in. Again, I'm just picking the first one because it's the 4 on the x is smaller, but you can pick either one. I'm going to plug in a positive 3. It's 36. Track that 36. Divide by 4. And square root. So that tells me for each x being 3, I get 2 y's. So 3, 2, and 3, negative 2. And then if I had made this 3 negative from the beginning, would it have changed anything? Same exact set. So I also know that if it's negative 3, it's 2, and it's negative 2. So on the quiz assignment is the practice with the answers on it. So it's got just some example questions, okay? Answers are on the bottom. They're not worked out, but I'll work them out and then I'll post them worked out. Tomorrow when you come in, we'll time briefly for questions, not a lot of questions time. So if you need the extra help, then I'm available after school in 402, okay? But if not, we'll go over questions when you first come in and then you'll take your quiz. Questions on any of this stuff now? Okay. Just going to take some practice to get used to it, okay? But it's a lot of the same steps.